Hey, hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I think we're gonna start with game in 5. enormous error about halfway through the game. Take a look at this and take a look at this in review. Playing the Italian game after the move h6, which is intended to cut out the fried liver attack and similar attacks, early attacks on f7, but it is a bit slow, and white finds the winning idea with pawn to d4, opening up the center immediately. Black chooses to capture on d4, and after recaptures, to leave his knight, leave his knight on c6. The capture on d4 is interesting, but it's a sheer concession. Queen takes d4, and white has, is just ahead. The bishop on c4 is developed, the queen's developed, and mostly safely so, except save for the move c5 if black wants to commit to that. And the pawn on e4 is both occupying and controlling the center. So knight takes d4, queen takes d4 has to be conceded. Knight takes d4, queen takes d4 has to be seen as a concession from black. Instead, knight to e7, preparing maybe white will capture on c6, and then black will capture on c6, and have a closer game. I don't think white's gonna do that. On a board like that, I'm going straight for the king, and this wasn't a mistake. Let's take a look. Now this is the punishing portion. I want to see. The correct move was simply to develop for black, back a ways. I went with a more aggressive option, queen f3, but cooler heads prevail when knight c3 is played here, and we're just again like hammering home this occupation and control of the center. White's ready to develop. White's ready to castle soon, and it's going to have a lead in development space and king safety, with clocks about even so far, and the initiative is probably about even. Material even. So anyway, I played queen f3. I felt good about the move, and now I'm seeing that it was a mistake. Can black really afford to capture on d4? No, of course not. Either queen takes f7 checkmate, or bishop takes f7 checkmate. So this is part of the idea, to get black thinking about that, and also, aggressive style chess. You present a threat, the threat is repaired. Present another threat, the threat is repaired. You present still another threat, the threat is repaired. And eventually, either you find a threat that can't be met, or your opponent cracks a bit and makes a more obvious blunder. Makes a blunder. Aggressive chess. My opponent had the right medicine, though, with knight to e5. So when I scoot to queen b3, then the capture of my second piece in the battery is on. Knight captures c4, queen captures c4. And, it's kind of funny because we were debating this position, or one very much like it, not too long ago. I think the knight and the this is almost like the position we were debating earlier. There's a pawn staking a claim, a developed knight, and a queen that's developed, and she can't really be harassed or harried all that strongly. So she's actually developed well at c4 here, I'm looking at d5 as a possibility. Black would want to strike against white's queen with d5, and then e takes d5. And if black really wants to force things, then queen takes d5, queen takes d5, knight takes d5, and it's just a queenless middle game. But there's a lot of other options aside from forcing action against white's possibly vulnerable queen on c4. Bishop to f4. And the best move there is d6. Cool heads prevail again. Like I was saying earlier, cool heads prevail. And pawn to d6 cuts out attacks against c7. Could be in some maneuver to a point for a central outpost. It's just a calm, sort of passive and reserved move. And I think, like Torch thinks, Torch 4 thinks that it's also the best move. And it shows you what center control can do when your best move on move 9 is pawn to d6. Knight to c3. Just developing. Now with a kind of a attacking post. I mean, the threat is clear against c7 for check on black's king, and then also attacking the rook on a8. White would earn the exchange on a8, and after the queen captures, then it's the exchange. Yeah, no, way more than that. That's one part of it, depending if the queen moves beforehand. But as it is, knight to c7 check snags black's queen. The king is smothered by his own pieces. So black must surrender the queen on c7, then queen takes c7, and white is up a queen to a piece, and it's going to be. That's it. So these sort of middle level moves. I played g3 with the idea that bishop takes f4, pawn takes f4 would allow white to pressure black's king along the g file. And we're going to see how that came to be and was a big part of the game, big part of how white went on to win. So here I'm going to capture this bishop. It's a mostly open board. There's these pawns here, but the board is, is pretty darn open. So this central knight doesn't do it for me. Many of his most aggressive moves are covered by pawns. So I'd like to capture on f5, and then when the queen recaptures, we're pretty much dealing with the same stuff. This is a almost dead even board. Capture, and this is a strong move. And the point that I think white has going for him over black is utilizing these half-open files, the F file and the G file. Black can't do that with pawns on B and A. The analogous idea to utilize these three files, A, B, and C, just doesn't quite work. Although C might work, and I'm surprised, now in retrospect, I'm surprised I didn't see the move rook to C8, noting that the queen is already attacking C2, and it's a straightforward strengthening of an attack, but I think it's a rather strong one. My opponent missed. But king to h7 is strong. Get off the file with the pinned pawn. without king to h7, white's going to prepare, uh, or white's going to play queen takes h6. There's no recapture because the pawn is pinned, and there's even, if there's a poor mistake after that, then there's even the threat of checkmate on G. Well, there's the threat of checkmate, and if it's not handled well, there will be checkmate on G7. This move's hard to explain. It just takes advantage of a lot of, not any one idea in great amount, but many little ideas coming together to make this a rather strong move. Rook to f4 is a very strong move, like I said, for the confluence of a lot of good little ideas for black. First of all, the rook's got to be protected, and he is. We're winning some. We're winning a tempo here against the queen on e4. We leave behind our rook on g1 because it's not clear whether that rook should stay on the g file or move to the f file and therefore form a very strong attack against f7. The queen doesn't have many squares to which she may flee safely. If you count the square, which squares are open. We'll do that like this, and I think it's only e3 and e2. These are the only two squares to which she may safely flee. Prepares to double on the f file. I could kind of mention that. Yeah, it's a subtle move. It's the type of move I make now that I wouldn't have made 5 years ago. So with the queen's positioning, it became clear that the rook should double on the g file. So white is now threatening to break through. G6 doesn't quite do it. I made a brilliant sacrifice here. I'd like to play this out because this was one of my best moves in recent weeks and months, or whatever. And I must have made some horrible blunder soon thereafter, but so that wasn't it. I'm missing some kind of. Queen g3, tripling on the g file. Interesting. Well, that's fine. But rook takes g6 was called for. It was the best move. I actually made this move. I kind of stumbled into this brilliant move because I was planning on. I saw that rook g8 might have been a response, but I thought that I had checkmate on h6. The rook is giving check and is defended, but woe is me. Black's queen is also on that diagonal and can overpower white on the h6 square. So I adjusted, made this blunder. Surprised, the only good move here was queen g3. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to signify and denote best move by this arrow. Queen g3 would have been like we saw in that practice that I had just shown. Anyway, we had this trade of rooks, and my rook skirted over to c1 to try to make a well-fortified area for my king. I guess it looks like the black has a tactic here that it goes back to y, even as far back as rook takes g6. It's this tactic that partially guides things. Oh, no, I'm sorry, my friends. Queen f4 drops a piece, drops the queen altogether. Black had a better tactic. It was a if you find it, you get it. If you don't, you probably won't kind of moment. And that tactic was rook to g1. Well, there's now two pieces on my rook. I can't simply capture because of back rank checkmate delivered from g1 across the first rank. When my opponent played queen to f4 and dropped the queen. Some moves later, I said, get the pawn out of the reach of the king, and then sacrifice a queen versus rook. Queen's back, and things are just going to dust up and deliver checkmate. So I'm sorry, that was not a great game for me to review, and I'm sorry about that. But I reviewed it anyway, so oh well. All right. Well, I think that's going to be all for this session, folks. Probably all for the day. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.